Yeonju lay in bed, alternating his gaze from the ceiling to the view outside. That morning, he left the curtains open for one last drink of the mountain's natural beauty. Back home, houses dripping with modernity would replace this view. Hours passed since Song met his sister, but still his heart thudded against his palm. Soon as Song left the room, Yeonju dialed Emmy. She sat roadside as he relayed the news with little pause for breath or care to mask delighted squeals. The internship was over. Monday marked his first official day on the job. The time between now and then made Yeonju dizzy. He packed for the week. Only his wildest dreams entertained the thought that he packed too light. At some point, he'd need to make a trip home, or the skimpy robe would have to make another appearance. Although certain Salum wouldn't object, he'd prefer something less revealing. At least he should pretend like his goal was competency, not to score his boss. But denying his hope that a prolonged stay would strengthen their bond would be untrue. Through the blackness, Yeonju peered at the contract on the end table. When first propositioned, he should have taken care to think. But when Salum stood, he blurted his acceptance, cheeks burning. For sure, Salum caught the red in hue. The feigned reflection was pointless when both men knew the only answer was yes. The almost indistinguishable ticking on the bedside table punctuated the silence. Yeonju assumed Song had gone to sleep long ago, but a sudden creak in the hall proved him wrong. Before Yeonju knew it, his ear met the cool wood of his bedroom door. Next, he heard the rustling of fabric in the entryway, a soft click, and fading footsteps. Again, no sounds of fumbling keys. Heading out to visit Emmy earlier, Song almost forewent locking up too. He only relented for Yeonju, because the thought of leaving many beauteous artworks unguarded horrified him. Before Salwon could get too far ahead, Yeonju grabbed his shoes and the jacket from the back of the desk chair. He knew he hung it on the rack when they got home, but while Yeonju showered, Salwon must have given it right back. The ever-lingering sandalwood aroma curled the corners of his mouth as Yeonju pulled it on. Sharing the same space with Song and his sister had gone quite well. But when he woke that day, he planned for the worst possible outcome. Everything returned to the state it had been before Yeonju came to live there. After waiting a bit longer to increase his odds of obscurity, Yeonju crept out of his bedroom. In the foyer, his hand hovered over the knob. For a moment, he worried he'd open up the song sipping tea in the fresh night air. Yeonju released a shaky exhale, finding instead an empty front porch and yard. A pair of sandals sat beneath the window, but the sturdier footwear one earlier was missing. Unlike the cabin's owner, Yeonju didn't feel right leaving it defenseless. He activated the lock with the key he retrieved from behind a loose piece of window framing and stowed it away again. Yeonju didn't know these people. The few he'd met seemed nice enough, but looks can be deceiving. He jiggled the door once more and made his way this time to the trolleys. Without a doubt, Sung had taken the stairs. It took more time, but avoiding night owls seemed of greater importance. Yeonju preferred a solitary escapade as well. The trolleys, both man-pulled and electric, shared a docking station. In a bustling city like his own, there would have to be a 24-hour attendant. Here, that might not be necessary. When he arrived, Yeonju looked to the large analog clock above the station. It read 5 after midnight. Not a bad walk. He couldn't picture Song as the type to take advantage of this service often. No surprise he wasn't here either. As fit as he was, Yeonju suspected Song had already reached the bottom on foot. Yeonju failed to keep the man's glorious thighs from his mind as he took a seat in one of the cars. The door clicked shut and the mechanical vehicle lurched to a start. His knees brushed the sides, but there was enough space ahead to fit one other person. Enough for Song. Yeonju slumped in his seat lest he pass the artist on the nearby staircase, but there was no one there. At the base, the flanking trolley doors swung up like a bird preparing to take flight. Yeonju didn't get up right away, eyeing the platform. Empty. An electronic gate kept him prisoner until a fortunate coin he found in his pocket freed him. With how ancient the machine was, Song's loose coat button likely would have worked. But Yeonju would never do that. A donation of any size, was all he was asked for as payment. If he had thought to bring his wallet, he would have deposited a bill instead. A small smattering of establishments peppered the foot of the mountain. The first time Yongju saw them, he was in too much of a rush to stop and survey. He'd been late enough as it was, and dawdling here would have intensified Song's upset. Or worse, might have led to refusal to meet, period. Yongju mulled through the shops, modest but larger than the carts focused on one or two customers at a time, minuscule compared to the ones in the city, crowded with people every morning. Due to the later hour, they were all closed, save for a small corner store boasting that they never did. Yongju couldn't see why a town of such few people would demand such a thing. Through the window, Yongju spied a younger male, 20s or so, busied with a book behind the counter. He yawned and turned the page with no real urgency as Yongju walked by. He envied this man who likely earned the majority of his paycheck this way. Alarm bells sounded before Yongju took a careless step in front of the next shop. This was, after all, a secret mission. For a minute, he'd forgotten. Catching sight of the man who'd eluded him standing inside, Yongju was glad he trusted his gut. He knew Song couldn't have been too far ahead. The area wasn't large. The danger of running into him was very real, especially since Yongju was a stranger to the area. Fortunate to see the older man before Song spied him, he tucked back more, hiding behind a wall. Even from behind, Song's aura was intoxicating. Yongju longed to wrap the artist in a back hug and caress his rippled abdomen with his fingertips. There, wooden racks, once loaded with touristy garments, stood in pairs on each side of the entrance. Whoever emptied them would need to refill again in the morning. Why not wheel them inside at closing time? Oh, that's why. No wheels. Thick posts bored deep in ground, so long ago that they were now married to the dirt. If someone wanted to smash these, they'd need a shovel. Who would ever want a no clothing rack anyway? In a town with residents well past 60, Yongju got the vibe crime was low. To get a better look inside, Yongju peeked around the corner into the large storefront window. The dim lighting within made it hard to see what Song was rifling through, but they were dark in color. Judging by the mannequin on a pedestal behind him, only clad from the waist down, he was in the pants section. The upper garments must be on the opposite side. What was so important here that Song was willing to risk detection again to get it? If Song had told Yongju first, he would have been glad to run this errand and save him a trip. Lost in his imagination, Yongju hadn't noticed his body had moved without instruction. He let out a curse as the toe of his shoe pinged against the glass window. He moved too close, as if a magnetic force had been pulling him. Before Song could turn and catch him, Yongju swung his body back around the side of the shop. Another colorful word left his lips when the back of his skull collided with the brick wall. He clapped his mouth shut to silence any more sounds he might make. Waiting in the dark, he massaged the sore spot of his cranium with his free hand. He watched a oddly pristine cat, someone's pet perhaps, cross the street and counted to 10. When he risked a peek back through the window, Song wasn't in the same spot anymore. The man had moved from what he'd been perusing to the folded items on the back shelves. While he had the perfect opportunity, Yongju sprinted across the storefront. If luck was on his side, Song wouldn't turn around to see a suspicious Yongju-shaped blur.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more.
Stripped down, going up, bulletproof. There's a breeze through the window, the night slips in. Every breath you take feels under my skin. This strap undone like a careless sin, like you're never meant to be alone in it. I swallow fire.